just telling consumers. Because if you tell consumers something that you aren't going to deliver, then things come down crashing much faster. Good advertising kills a bad product faster than it would otherwise die. I think my point has always been less about fixing what they hate, but is more about giving them control in situations that they hate. For example, my coffee is not all right. I'll fix it. I'll immediately fix it. I'll give you another cup of coffee. At that point, I don't want to necessarily analyze whose fault was it. Was it they who didn't try it? You got to give them that control back.
Right.
You have to. My pizza is late. I'm allowing you to punish me by giving it to you free. I'm giving you control back. When Swiggy and Zomato started on their apps, and I think at Domino's we also did it around the same time, you could see where the delivery person is. Right? That's control.
Right.
A lot of tech that
Even
is
Uber
driving
for
CX,
that matter,
Uber,
Yeah.
is actually just giving control back.
Correct.
Right? India today is not that India.
Right.
Today we are post-consumption. We've consumed everything, right? There's nothing left to drink. There's no whiskey that one hasn't had. There's no kind of chocolate that one hasn't eaten.
Right.
There's no type of coffee that one doesn't. I'm talking about the consumer
Correct.
at the,
Right.
the world over
And
travel.
it's accessible now in India. Right.
From linen to khadi to silk to coffee to... There are some of us who know a little bit about everything, right? And it's no longer a turn on. There was a need which was fueling all this, right? Because the more you do this, the more you break away from the others, and you produce this identity of yourself as this guy who knows everything. And it's a sort of badge of intelligence and having arrived in life, etc. That's what consumption does, right? But beyond the point, you realize its futility, right? You realize कि यार मतलब
कर लिया क्या है?
come on, there's a shallowness in that as well, right?
True.
Right?
Yeah.
There is a maturity cycle of the consumer also.
True.
Starts off from wanting to drink colas and eat pizzas and eat cakes and ice creams and wear certain kind of clothes and buy certain kind of cars and all of that. And then there's a sort of growing out of that, which is what I call the post-consumption consumer, right? Now, if that is the most evolved consumer, in their behavior lies the clue to CX, isn't it?
Right.
Right? Because everyone's going to get there eventually.
Correct.
Okay, don't think
if they are loyal to you, then you've probably hit the right chord.
Because उससे बड़ा तो कोई consumer है ही नहीं ना. उससे ज़्यादा buying power तो किसी के पास है ही नहीं. Now you can think of this in context of a person, or you can think in context of your category. In your category, if you're selling cars, your most premium consumer then would be post-consumption.
True.
If you're selling beverages, your most premium consumer would be post-consumption.
Right.
If you're selling rice or whatever, your most evolved consumer would always be post-consumption, especially in a market like India.
Right.
Now, the rules of their engagement, their satisfaction, are that they don't want to be sold to. They already know more than your brand managers about your category.
True. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of CX with Chopra, where we talk about everything customer experience. Today I'm excited, delighted and honored to have our guest, Mr. Dev Amritesh, on our show. He's played multiple CXO roles, I would say. He's been the CEO of Culinary Brands, which is Subway, Lavazza, Fresh and Honest. He's been the CMO of Domino's India. He's been the Chief Operating Officer for Dunkin Donuts India. He's been the Chief Strategy Officer at Compass Group. I'm sure this is going to be a CX masterclass, and I'm super excited. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, and I hope not to disappoint.
No,
Masterclass is a big.
No, the pressure is on me.
Not at all.
So I'll jump straight in. In all these different brands, you have handled scale, you've looked at how to bring a Western brand to India, which means understanding customer Indian culture, embedding into Indian culture, and talking about scale at a time probably, I mean, India may probably wasn't ready, if we may say, for that from an operational standpoint. Keeping all that aside, those challenges were there. But end of the day, it had a customer delight as well. I know, I mean, for example, US in the 90s, there used to be some aspirational value. I know while growing up, some relative would come, get some branded t-shirt or even a type in. And I remember our uncle used to have franchisee of Baskin Robbins. So we used to get those, 31 Baskin Robbins type ins, those things. We used to be very excited. But how do you then design for customer delight in a market which is very different from, where the brand originated?
So there are several dimensions of delivery and designing a whole brand solution, right? I think one is, what does the brand really represent, and what does it stand for, and why should people consume it in the first place? I think everyone in the organization must be aligned on that one fundamental question. And the answer is different for different brands. They play different roles. But I think some of the brands that you mentioned, especially in the 90s in India, right, when the whole thing was opening up,
Right.
I think Americana as a narrative, right, perhaps was something that the market was consuming. In India, the consumption of Americana is not very direct, like you find in some Southeast Asian countries, like where people openly wearing American flag T-shirts and all of that.
Right.
India is also a very nationalistic country, and
Right.
there's also a huge nationalistic
Yeah.
pride in India. So the nuance to Americana in India is less about a nationalistic idea of another country. It's more about a cultural idea of consuming a certain identity. Like by consuming a certain kind of brands, it's almost like you're traveling into that culture. It's almost like what you get as a tourist, right? What do you get as a tourist?
Right.
You get exposed to something new. You get exposed to a culture which is new for you. There's an education almost in that. And the currency that you actually get back through that consumption is a sort of cultural education and an identity production for yourself. You start to look at yourself in a way that, I know this a little bit, right? I know a little bit about cheese now. I know a little bit about single malt. I know a little bit about pizza. I know about coffee.
Cappuccino versus latte versus...
Cappuccino versus latte versus cortado versus...
Yeah.
Even cappuccino and latte is not enough right now.
Correct.
Even espresso is not enough. Now you have to know a little bit about grind size and roast color and all of that, right? So what is happening in all that, right? What is happening in all of that is through consumption, you are producing an identity for yourself that you admire. Okay. And in the 90s, especially with the mediocre 80s, as I like to call them, right? And the disastrous 70s, right? And the traumatic 60s, right? I think 50s was a era of hope, independence, Bhakra Nangal Dam, Green Revolution, and all of that. We know what happened in the mid 60s. We know what 70s was all about. I think the early 90s was a time when, while the nationalistic idea in India was very still there, and it's even there now, but this whole thing of let's go out a little bit and let's produce this identity of ourselves. Software engineer, Karan Johar अपनी films में जो बंदों को दिखा रहा था, Shahrukh Khan who's drinking Pepsi, that whole idea was very current. But the underlying thing behind that is that people want to produce an identity in their own heads for themselves, which they can admire. And the only way to be able to do that is to consume something. I know it sounds very commercial when I say that, but that consumption need not be a product. It could be a trip into a trekking expedition into a mountain.
Right.
There is a consumption in that. You have to buy gear, you have to...
Even movies was a reflection, like Yash Chopra showing Switzerland at that time. That became the aspirational thing.
Yeah, it's all about going out, going west, and it's changed now. I'm not saying this is the narrative
90s
today.
and 2000s.
Yeah, and it was at a very sort of infantile, in a very infantile way. The consumption was still very infantile. So I think firstly, when you bring an international brand into India, I think one is being authentic to what it is, but more importantly, is what idea and what currency does it represent for people here, and to shine it in that light and to show it in that light. Unfortunately, not always the brands are necessarily that in their own country, and therefore it sometimes becomes inauthentic. But I think at the brand level, it's really that, how do you produce and help people see themselves in a certain way through consuming that brand. And the product level, I think it's all about relevance. It's all about product has its own rules beyond that, right? I mean, it's brand may work, but the product may not work. So getting the brand right, getting the product right, getting delivery right, getting culture right in the country, I think all those elements become very important. But the most important, I think, is cracking this piece. Like through consuming my thing, do people feel better about themselves? I think it comes down to that.
But from an operational standpoint or from a culture as in how do you internalize it in an organization? That you build systems that customer delight is always constant. It's there. It's not like a spike, or this worked, or next time this might not work. It's not like ad campaigns which might hit or will not hit. So how do we design that? Because I remember in our conversation you talked about the whole fail-safe systems, and then how important it's to look at those small failures, because the failures are bound to happen. So how do you look at that and evolve?
Yeah.
I'd love to, yeah.
No, I think in your question itself, there is a seed of the answer to the question. So in large organizations, right, where there are people who are spread out all over, in retail shops, making deliveries to people's homes, employees are doing a lot of work unwatched, right? If you think about anything that scales, there is one human being doing something alone where
Right.
nobody is watching him, right? Think about a petrol pump when somebody is filling your car. Think about a pizza delivery person when they're coming to your house.
Right.
Think about a courier person giving you something. Think about an interaction with a salesperson in a retail showroom where you and they are the only two people, right? Most of the time, the person is unwatched. Even in a factory, when somebody is producing something,
Right.
they're not watched all the time. Yeah, sure, there's a camera somewhere and there's a supervisor around, but I would say 90% of the time we are doing our work when nobody is watching us, right?
Right.
What do people do when they are not watched, right? How do they work when they are not watched? What do they produce when they are not watched? What do they how do they deliver when they are not watched, right? It means that 90% of the time things can go wrong. And especially from a consumer delight perspective, forget delight, even from a customer satisfaction or a basic, fulfillment of their needs, things can go wrong 90% of the times,
Right.
right? But how does everything work? Why do we talk about failure rates and parts per million and so on and so forth? Why do people mostly end up doing the right thing, right? And I think the answer to that is in the culture that you build in an organization. Let me give you an example of this, right? I used to work for Domino's Pizza, and we had this thing that you get 30 minutes for free.
Right.
And if the pizza doesn't come, you get it in 30 minutes for free, right? And it was, of course, there was an SOP and there was a whole operational
Right.
element to it and all of that, right? But the cultural truth that everyone in the company shared, including the delivery boy and all our storytelling internally in the company, all the symbolism and ritualization in the company was celebrating the inherent heroism in the delivery boy, almost as if he's rescuing the consumer from hunger. Right? So you create this myth of this hero, and each employee feels that in them. And I don't mean myth in a disingenuous sort of way. I mean myth in a philosophical way. You create this idea of this hero who is, getting food to people who are hungry, and you elevate that to a value that everyone thinks of it very dearly. Think about food when you're hungry. It's the most important thing.
Correct. Right.
And if it doesn't come on time, then you are even more hungry, and it's
Right.
like now super important.
Right.
And if there are children involved, then it's super important.
Yeah.
So it actually does become very important. So that myth is real, right? And our team, we worked very hard on sort of instilling those values. And there was a time when I had moved into a new apartment building in Noida. I think it was 12 or 13 floors, and we were probably on the 5th or 6th floor. Those days I used to smoke, so I had come out and I was smoking in the balcony, and I saw our delivery boy. It was a new apartment complex. The lifts were not yet commissioned. Okay.
Wow.
So and summer, hot evening, he had a pizza bag in his hand, and he was rushing up the stairs, right, on the 8th floor. So I saw him rushing up the stairs, and he didn't recognize me, but I knew he was from Domino's because uniform. When he came down, I asked him कि
क्यों भाग रहे हो?
इतनी तेजी से क्यों भाग रहे थे? तो he said कि नहीं, I said 30 minutes से लेट हो रहा था क्या? I said नहीं sir, 22 minutes में डिलीवरी किया है.
अच्छा.
तो I said फिर क्यों भाग रहे थे?
हाँ.
If you had just walked up, probably 24 you would have reached instead of 22.
Right.
It would have taken 2 minutes. तो he said नहीं, वो मैम मैंने ही फ़ोन उठाया था.
अच्छा, okay.
And ma'am had said, my daughter is very hungry. क्या आप जल्दी से लेके आ सकते हैं?
Wow. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so he was the order taker, and in retail stores people do multiple jobs. The same guy can.
Right.
So he decided to make the delivery, and he ran up and delivered the pizza in 22 hours, right? In 22 minutes, right? So that is the secret, I think, where everyone starts to share the same value. Culture is built when values are shared, right? It's as simple as that. We can define culture in 1,000 ways. But if you and me, we believe in the same things, we have the same value system, and we have 5 people who have the same value systems, then we say we have the same culture.
Right. Interesting, because you also spoke about that you had reached out to Gulzar as well for some campaign. And talk about that emotion of aayega aane wala.
Yeah, so that was the whole, we made a film. Sujit Sarkar was the famous director. He had made that film, and we didn't run that too much, but we ran it, I think we ran it a little bit, which was all about this whole idea of that the pizza delivery person is, we shot it in Calcutta, in the old city, during the rains.
Achha, okay.
Matlab ekdam full Sujit Sarkar style of iconography and storytelling. And the whole script showed that he's just not able to reach. Okay, so some protest is going on, like in Calcutta. It's common in those days, so he takes a U-turn.
I think I remember, yeah.
You remember seeing that? And then there's a maybe a pujo thing going on.
I think I remember, yeah.
Then there's some water on the way and all of that. And he keeps going, finding a way, figuring it out. And he makes it, he runs up the stairs. That running up the stairs was inspired by what I had seen. Yeah, so we found a staircase where he runs up. And then this girl, he delivers it to her, and she, when he's leaving, he looks back and she's waving at him, "Khushiyon ki home delivery," right? Domino's Khushiyon ki home delivery. So, the emotion and the central idea that builds your culture, if you make it a part of your brand and your storytelling as well, then the whole thing comes together, right? And everyone gets tied by the same sort of.
Because most of the time, brands focus on invoking that emotion or values in the end customer. That in that end customer, how do we invoke that emotion, and they have that connect. But it's very interesting that this is how the delivery person, felt the whole pride in it and took it like a responsibility and then deliver. So it works both ways. Actually, it's very interesting.
Actually, I think it probably works the other way more than just telling consumers. Because if you tell consumers something that you aren't going to deliver, then things come down crashing much faster. Good advertising kills a bad product faster than it would otherwise die.
Interesting.
Because you elevate expectations now, and you induce a higher number of trials based on that expectation. Right?
An Indian consumer anyway is very judgmental. It's like, now let me test.
Yeah. So now what you're doing is that there's a minimum volume required for tipping point required for failure or for success. It's simply a function of how quickly you get how many trials. Any product, I guess.
Correct.
I'm sure somebody has written something about it, right? Where you get certain number of trials to happen in a period of time.
Right.
and then there's a factor of how successful those trials are.
Right.
So if you have great advertising on a premise, then the speed with which those trials will happen is now accelerated,
Right.
and therefore the rate at which you will fail is much faster. Right. So I think it's more important. The other thing is more important, where you first build that internal capability, and then you start telling that story. And only when it is the ubiquitous truth, and it is undeniably true now, then should you have the courage to go and make a claim to the consumer. Otherwise, it can all come apart very quickly. But equally, if it becomes an undeniable truth, and then you tell that story in a manner which is evocative, all you will now do is recruit some new consumers who you hadn't recruited before. Your existing consumers will say, "Yeah, I already know that.
I already know.
It's not new news for me." But that's all that good advertising will do at that stage.
Understood. So my question is, how do businesses then design for this? Then
See, it's a very, very interesting question, right? And I think there's a whole set of things that you need to do, right? Left brain things that you need to do and you need to get right. But rather than going into that, I'd like to explore one dimension of it, which I think is fundamental. Okay. Which is how you think of your organization as a system. Okay. Now, if you think about culture and you think about multiple points of failure, okay, as your inherent truth to any organization that has scaled, right? You need to think about that as what kind of a system is it? Okay, that's such an organization, what kind of system is it? And only when you are clear what kind of a system you're dealing with, do certain kind of design principles come in. And you design your organization with those design principles, right? So I think what's relevant here in this context is to first investigate two types of systems.
Okay.
Right? And then I'm sure there are many types, but just looking at two contrasting types of systems, right? One is what we call fail-safe systems, right? They are not supposed to fail. Think of an aircraft.
Right.
Think of an elevator.
Right.
It's a fail-safe system. A fail-safe system fails when it fails. There's no other thing about it. Right? If there's a snag, it fails. The elevator cord gets cut, it fails. Right? It's as simple as that. So how do you design a fail-safe system? You build in factors of tolerance, multiple factors of safety. If something is designed to take 100 kilograms of load, you design it for taking 1,000 kilograms of load, right? It will fail at 1100, right? But you know that. Nothing is fail-safe in the world, right?
We've seen that.
Yeah. Like Big Bang Theory hoga, sab khatam ho jayega, right? So nothing is fail-safe beyond a point, but that's how fail-safe systems are designed, right? If they're meant to take these many Newton per millimeter of force, you design it for 20x that, 50x that. Depending on how critical it is, you keep increasing the factor of safety, right? So this is fail-safe systems. Most people, most business leaders, and most people who are building anything, any product, for some reason, our Western education tends to orient us towards designing fail-safe systems, right? It comes naturally to us. Most of us have studied science. Most business leaders, not most, but many, have either studied science or economics, and then in B school they have studied economics and engineering and principles of management, etc. Right? And then there's the whole sort of manufacturing paradigm also, which is about fail-safe and all of that, and the whole Japanese way of manufacturing. So that's a big part of our management narrative, right? And I think we try to run a lot of things in our life through the design principles of a fail-safe system. And that's where we start to get it wrong. Because complex, large-scale organizations that are doing, that have multiple consumer touch points, that do delivery in a highly distributed environment, in places where they have no control over, those systems are not inherently fail-safe systems. They cannot be. They cannot be designed through the principles of fail-safe systems. Because things have to go wrong, right? When something is so complex, right? Things have to go wrong. So we need another type of imagination of a system to design our organization and our processes and our culture around. And those problems, answers to that could be found probably in the concept of safe fail systems, right? Now, the definition of a safe fail system is a system that fails when it fails to fail. I'll repeat this. It's a system that fails when it fails to have those little failures.
Failures.
Those
Symptoms.
Yes. If those little failures are happening and they're getting reported and you are aware of them, then you know things are working, right? The moment they stop getting reported, the premise is they must be happening.
Right.
If I'm not hearing about it, it means it's not happening,
Right.
which means the system is failing, which means that the thermometer
Right.
is not there, it's not reading the temperature in the human body. The human body is a safe fail system. It's one of the most complex systems, we haven't even fully understood it. Because think about it, millions of pizzas going out, millions of coffees being sold.
So failure points are bound to happen.
It's going to happen, right?
Right.
It's about being okay with it. It's being chilled out with it, right?
Right.
Through the organization. It's all right. We'll take care of it. We'll fix it, right? And, not setting up that expectation itself in the first place, right?
Right.
Of course, getting it wrong is terrible. But that's not the failure. Having a fever is not the failure, right? Not being able to see the fever is a failure. But I just want to comment on another thing that came to my mind as you were speaking. One is that this kind of a system allows customer experiences to be fixed. But if you think about it as a design principle, there is another very major advantage of this, right?
Okay.
Which I think is far more important. When you have a system for allowing failures to flow in and capturing failures systematically and recording them, then you are also over time with data. Think about it from an analytics perspective, right? You will start to see patterns of stress points within the company. Okay.
Right.
So it's not like we're not building fail-safe structures as well. Over time, a great safe fail system will start to become stronger and stronger and stronger.
Optimize itself.
It will
right.
still never become fail-safe. It should still never be should be seen as fail-safe. But if there is a way to get closer to fail-safe, it is to be constantly safe fail. Because if you're good at data and if you're good at saying, oh, this seems to be happening, and if you're good at analytics, you will say, oh, this seems to be happening every time on Saturday afternoon
Right.
in South Delhi. What's going on in South Delhi on Saturday evenings?
Right.
Oh, the volume is too high. The infrastructure is crumbling under the pressure of that volume. We need to solve for it, right? We can't reduce volume, so we need to throw more capacity in. We can't throw more capacity in because it comes only on Saturday evenings. We need to flex capacity and throw flex capacity in. How do you arrive at a solution like that? You arrive at a solution like that because you have data, failure data, which now is categorized. You're an analytics person. You understand the whole concept of categorizing data and putting it, cross-tabbing it with other variables, etc. Such organizations that are built on the idea of safe failure, they build a certain, I think, structure of data and failure data and link it to other variables in the organization that makes them fix things
Right.
and makes them fix things permanently. Now, a lot of it is not discussed in that context because it becomes part of regular operating process. But if you think about this as a philosophy, I think it's one of the most significant dimensions that can drive customer satisfaction and scaling of an organization.
Interesting, because there's you in one of your older podcasts, you talked about, and I want to connect it to this point. You talked about that how that whole love-hate emotion, right? Hate is a very strong emotion. I really liked what you spoke about. That people would hate something when it's really important for them, and when they have no control over it. So for organizations, it's important to look at what are those hate moments and how can you fix them, because that obviously will turn the game. Now, should organizations design for design looking at all the failure points or points where somebody would potentially hate you as a brand and keep that in, because we typically look for delight, positive things, what will be the aha moments, but we don't look at the other side. What are the things which a customer is averse of, what they'll not like. Should we look at that side as well while designing an experience as in product, in store, everything?
I think less about fixing. I think my point has always been less about fixing what they hate, but is more about giving them control in situations that they hate. So let me give you a few examples. Okay, all of us will resonate with this. Remember back in the day when flights used to be very much delayed,
Right.
right? Delayed for 1 hour and 2 hours and all of that, right? What are you hating actually? One is that the flight is late and it's very important to you. But what are you hating? You're not hating that the flight is delayed alone. What you're hating is I have no control over it.
The unpredictability of it.
Yeah, it's important to me and I don't control it.
Right.
It's a simple formula for hating anything, right? We hate things which are important to us and we have no control over. Now, if you are the station manager of that airline, okay, who is managing this crowd, okay?
I would not want to be, but yeah. Yeah.
But that's what CX is.
Right.
Right? You're CX with Chopra,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
What do you tell those guys, right? There is absolutely zero control this person has over when this freaking aircraft is going to land or take off. This station manager of this airline, okay? Because वो कहीं बादलों में कहीं फंसा हुआ है यार, and it's doing its own thing, right? What does he do? He can only give some control back to these people. Okay, what can he do? He can disappear, no control. They go crazy, right? Or he can come in and say, one form of control, what you are talking about is give them coffee, give them some meals. Nothing will work because they don't need coffee, meal and water.
They need to go to another place.
No. Of course they need to go to another
but
place.
They need some
They have no
visibility.
control. He can only give them some control back. Give control back, give control back, give control back. You know what? My latest news says that this flight is likely to land in 45 minutes. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to call my colleagues in the other airport in 15 minutes again. I'll come back to you in 15 minutes with an update. I come back 15 minutes and later and say, you know what, I'm sorry, there's a further delay of 8 minutes. It's going to land in 53 minutes from now. This time, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. Okay. Can you see how comforting that message is?
Right.
Because I know it's not 5 hours.
Right.
I know I'm not going to go back home. Right? Now I've got some control back, 53 minutes. Right? I'm again in control of my life. In 53 minutes, I'll be on a flight, which is important to me. It is not about, it's not just about I'm not going to get to my place. It is, I'm not going to get to my place. I don't know when I'll get to my place. I have no control over this situation. As a cultural animal, we all seek control. And the moment something is something is not important to me, I have no control over it. No, I'll say, screw it, yeah. Mainu ki, Sanu ki.
Right.
है ना? There's some two guys are fighting on the side. I have no control. ठीक है, I'll go my way.
Right.
The moment it becomes important, okay, and it's a key to CX. Key to CX. You can't always control the failure. You can't control the outcome. Okay, but I'll give you some control back. For example, my coffee is not all right. I'll fix it. I'll immediately fix it. I'll give you another cup of coffee, right? My shoe that you sold me is one size smaller than, and at that point, I don't want to necessarily analyze whose fault was it? Was it they who didn't try it? You got to give them that control back.
Right.
You know, you have to, my pizza is late. I'm allowing you to punish me by giving it to you free. I'm giving you control back. You know, when Swiggy and Zomato started, on their apps, and I think at Domino's we also did it around the same time, you could see where the delivery person is. Right? That's control.
Right.
A lot of tech that
Even
is
Uber
driving
for that
CX,
matter,
Uber,
Yeah.
is actually just giving control back.
Correct.
Right? He will reach in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Even if you know that your Uber is 25 minutes away, that's better than not knowing when he'll come. Kali Pili taxi.
Right. You stand on the road and
You
wait.
stand on the road.
कभी 2 घंटे नहीं मिली नहीं मिली.
It's all right. 25 minutes. No, I have control. I'll cancel it.
Right.
I'll hail something else. I'll take an auto. I'll figure it out. Right. So I think that's the key. Always look to give control back in environments where you may not be in control of the situation.
And it's interesting because when you're designing the experience, it's obviously product is one part of it. Obviously, we'll come to product, but there's so many all of these things which matter, that how do you deal, how that communication should happen. And even in this case, it comes back to the culture, because if you don't have the right culture, the on-ground person or the frontline worker is not empowered enough to have that conversation. Is not empowered enough to, let's say, bring a bouquet and give it to you. And those are the kind of things only I think a culture, because I still feel that culture is still very underrated and not talked about that much. Or maybe that's my perception.
All good leaders, I think, in retail, in organizations where you have a large workforce, you will see a certain kind of leader being successful in those organizations. More than strategy and brand and product, you will see them shining in this department. Okay, they'll be charismatic. People want to follow them. There's a reason that a certain kind of person becomes successful in a certain kind of organization. I think those are the people who intuitively get this. Who intuitively get, they're more human in their I think way of working. So yeah, I think there are a lot of organizations that don't get it, but equally, I mean, I just think about the people who have inspired me in my life, and a lot of them are leaders that I have worked with and I have looked up to. Intuitively, they got it, right? Intuitively, they got it. They understood it. Not all of, some of them are just ordinary sales guys who rose through the ranks, right? They get it. They get it that finally there's a human being on the other side,
Right.
who is handling this situation, and I think they understand. So not necessarily in organization design, but I think in leadership you will often find resonance of some of what we are discussing of successful organizations.
It was interesting. You also spoke about talking about leaders. You spoke about that all these big brands which have come in the last 50, 100 years, they have come up with because there was a visionary or there was a leader, there was an individual who built that out of passion, authenticity, care, love, and then of course to reach scale that after a merger acquisition, let's say you would need. So is that how it should be? I mean, because we talk about authenticity, we talk about emotion, and we talk about certain passionate leaders who are slightly crazy as well, because you have to think like that.
Yeah. And the fact is, consumers don't necessarily care about what they are consuming as long as it's beautiful and they like it. Consumers don't care whether they thought of it in the first place. Consumers don't care whether they had said in a focus group interview, we want this.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that'll never come out. Right.
Like Steve Jobs famously said, right? Like, how do they know what they want till I show it to them?
Show it to them.
Right.
Right.
Now, how do you produce that something which is so beautiful? The faculties that are involved in creation are unfortunately not democratic. Right? They come from a different place. So the title of this book that I have never written, and I hopefully will write it with you or
Book with
my
no title.
useless friend Abhimanyu Roy, who has promised to work with me. And I hope some listeners of yours reach out to me and something happens out of this. The title of this is The I Company. I as an individual. How do we design an organization that is able to privilege this faculty, right? This innate human faculty of creation, of producing beautiful things, systematically allowing for madness to exist and thrive in the organization, and creating a safe space for that. I don't know if it's possible. As I said, it's like perhaps the most, it's the deepest question that I have for myself that I haven't, been able to answer it. I think I have a sense of what it takes, and I think I have a sense of why an organization can't do it. I think the book is to see how it can be done and to do it perhaps somewhere. And I think it's the biggest consulting practice to be, book leading to consulting practice to be built. So my suggestion to you is let's leave all this
Yeah.
and let's get down to this, because it's
Love it. Yeah,
it's a multi-billion-dollar question for me at least. And if I don't know if you have comments that people write on this podcast and etc. You put it on YouTube, I presume. So if somebody has the answer to this question, right, or at least a hypothesis that they can point us towards, I think, I should look there. I think it would be awesome to learn from people and get educated on this.
A method to the whole madness.
Yeah, how to do this.
But it does take somebody to do it consistently. Consistency is important. It's not like you do it for 2 months, 3 months. You have to keep at it. And somewhere organization also have to design that they have to be at it.
Irrational belief, no.
Right.
See, the guy who does it, the guy who builds that macaron shop and keeps going at it, he's not saying it like you are saying that I have to consistently do it. He's just being himself. He's just doing it because he knows nothing else.
Right.
It's like love, yeah. Do you, get up in the morning and say, I will consistently love my children? It's not a thing you do, right? It's just who you are. It's just, it just comes from you because that's your, innate thing. You so deeply believe in what you're doing and it's part of you. And I think that produces, again, you can't talk yourself into it. I must do this consistently every day and get produced. It has to come from a sort of sense of who you are, a sense of place of being, I guess.
Yeah, I remember Virat Kohli in an interview also talked about that. For me, everything was cricket. My friends, where I go, where I sit, everything was cricket. He said if this thing had not worked out, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So for me, I like in poker, like you're always all in.
Yeah.
So like I had nothing else. So that was the only focus that I had.
And look how he walked away from it. Because it's not sustainable beyond a point. The moment he, family way, child, etc., he just walked away from it because it takes something, right? And there's a certain level of imbalance in it as well. But that's what passion is about, right? Passion has the ability to imbalance and take over your life, right? So,
but it's interesting because you spoke about that. One common question I ask is where does CX sit in an organization? Like you've played multiple roles from CEO, CMO, CEO. Who owns CX? Because everybody has their own objectives. For example, marketing would look at acquisition, operations would look at efficiency, or how do you deliver at the right time. Every product team would probably look at how many new features or different types of products they're featuring. But who's looking at the overall CX? And oftentimes what I've seen is organizations which have been super successful are the ones where the founder is passionate about CX. Be it Steve Jobs, be it Tesla, let's say, or be it any other example. Where the founder is passionate, to your point, then you see those brands growing big, and not growing big, at least making that cult.
I don't know if I agree with your assessment that the individual whose name you took was necessarily passionate about CX. Okay. Because he talks about, both of us don't know Steve Jobs, so we can only sit here and, theorize about it. But he talks about consumers with a fair degree of disdain also. In many of his speeches, how do they know what they want if consumers don't know what they want? Does this suggest that they are very concerned about CX? Maybe not. I don't know, right? Maybe yes, maybe not. I haven't read everything about him. But I think there is an inherent belief in doing something that they deeply believe in. Okay. And there is an inherent belief in being deeply authentic and honest and true and producing something beautiful. And with the belief that if I do that, then people will like it. Not the way in which you seem to be implying that you're doing things because that will make consumers happy. Consumers don't, I think, consumers don't like it when you try to make them happy. If that makes sense. Okay, at least I don't like it.
Interesting.
You know, because I'm a post-consumption consumer. I talked about India in the early 90s.
Right.
India today is not that India.
Right.
Today we are post-consumption. We've consumed everything, right? There's nothing left to drink. There's no whiskey that one hasn't
Right.
had. There's no kind of chocolate that one hasn't eaten.
Right.
There's no type of coffee that one doesn't. I'm talking about the consumer
Correct.
at the,
Right.
the world over
And it's
traveled.
accessible, right? Now
yeah.
in India.
Some-
Right.
From linen to khadi to silk to coffee to there are some of us who know a little bit about everything, right? And it's no longer a turn on. Okay, space side versus lowland versus this versus that, 16 years versus 18 years versus 25 years. Okay, people in India, many Indians are far more knowledgeable about Scotch and the various regions of whiskey in Scotland than the Scotch themselves, poor chaps.
If I was reading that Gurgaon sells more Scotch than it's produced in Scotland.
So there was a need which was fueling all this, right? Because the more you do this, the more you break away from the others, and you produce this identity of yourself as this guy who knows everything, and it's a sort of badge of intelligence and having arrived in life, etc. That's what consumption does, right? But beyond the point, you realize its futility, right? You realize कि यार मतलब
कर लिया क्या है?
come on, yeah. There's a shallowness in that as well, right?
True,
Right.
yeah.
Even that internal manifestation of consumption.
Right.
Of course, there's a shallowness that you feel when you buy that flashy Mercedes, and you feel it after a few months when you see your friend happy in his
Yeah.
SUV bashing it around, right?
Right. Right.
That shallowness is well understood, but there's a shallowness in this also. Even in this type of consumption, which you do for your own internal identity production, in that also there is a certain limit to it. Beyond a point, you're like, you visit the Macallan tour and you pay £500 and you see through that even, right? So there's a point when you don't like being sold to. Okay. And then the consumption that you are doing now is things which are not being sold to you. Okay. Sit on a Himachal tourism bus and go into Himachal Pradesh or into Uttarakhand with a backpack and go and consume in a roadside dhaba or live in a homestay or, start to experience some of those things.
Right.
They're not selling anything to you. Is CX high?
Yep.
Why? Because they're just being themselves.
And it's authentic.
It's
not,
authentic. It's
right.
real, right? So there, I think there's a sort of cycle to this, right? There is a maturity cycle of the consumer also.
True.
Starts off from wanting to drink colas and eat pizzas and eat cakes and ice creams and wear certain kind of clothes and buy certain kind of cars and all of that. And then there's a sort of growing out of that, which is what I call the post-consumption consumer, right? Now, if that is the most evolved consumer, in their behavior lies the clue to CX, isn't it?
Right.
Right? Because everyone's going to get there eventually.
Correct.
Okay,
Because
don't think
if they are loyal to you, then you've probably hit the right
you've
chord.
hit that. Because उससे बड़ा तो कोई consumer है ही नहीं ना. उससे ज़्यादा buying power तो किसी के पास है ही नहीं. Now you can think of this in context of a person, or you can think in context of your category. In your category, if you're selling cars, your most premium consumer then would be post-consumption.
True.
If you're selling beverages, your most premium consumer would be post-consumption.
Right.
If you're selling rice or whatever, your most evolved consumer would always be post-consumption, especially in a market like India.
Right.
Now, the rules of their engagement, their satisfaction, are that they don't want to be sold to. They already know more than your brand managers about your category.
True. Yeah.
Right? What will you sell them? Right? Because brand manager तो हर 2 साल में change हो जाता है.
Correct.
वो consumer तो वो brand को 20 साल से 30 साल से consume कर रहा है. Right? So I think the notion that real CX will happen when we don't obsess about CX and we don't try to do CX and don't say who's responsible for CX, but just do your thing. So I think otherwise it becomes a trick question. Who's responsible for CX? Oh, everybody in my company is responsible for CX. Right? That's one way to say it. Or CEO is responsible for CX. Another way to say is nobody is responsible for CX, bro.
But how do you operationalize it then? In the sense, for example, let's take an example of Uber. Now, if I say there is one common metric, let's say a CX metric, that everybody has to optimize, let's say average waiting time for the cab. Now, if every department
I say that's your product.
okay,
I say
that should be part of the product design.
that's your product because your insight is that people hate things. How can you sell a product that people hate? You have to fix. And if people hate things that are important to them and that they have no control over, then that's your product. Why is it CX? Why do we elevate CX to some sort of a metric, right? Which we have to achieve. Why can't it be part of our entire being? Yeah, because that lady in Himachal is not saying CX, na. She's genuinely a nice person who is happy to see you and saying,
Aditi Devo Bhava, like you say, right? Yeah.
Usko kya
You
metric
don't have to
hai?
write it on a hotel
You don't
wall.
have to, because
it has to.
the moment you do that, it starts to come apart, right? That's when you are saying, I have a fail-safe system. CX nahi girna chahiye, right? And that's a metric that you start to manage. Okay. The moment you start measuring NPS in a company and rewarding people for it, without any change in process, NPS will go up. Why?
Right. I mean, yeah. When a metric becomes...
Because I will manage that 20% customer
Right.
from whom I want that feedback.
Yeah.
Okay. And I will manage it. So it's a trick question, and I don't think I'm giving you a very responsible answer in a way. But I hope I'm not coming across as...
No, I think it is all tying back to this, the core fundamental, like you're saying. How do you build fail-safe systems? How do you have be authentic? And that will come out in your design, product design, or the experience, how customers feel about it.
Yeah.
I think everything then ties back to the same thing.
So you can say everybody owns it, or you can say nobody owns it, right? If everybody does their thing, right? If everybody does their thing, they do it because they love it, they do it because they think it's amazing. Of course, they can't be delusional and think it's amazing, but nobody else in the world thinks they can't be full of shit, right? It's got to be tested and it's got to work and you've got to pilot it and prove it and all of that. All that has to happen, right? So I don't mean it flippantly, what I'm saying. But at the same time, we can't be so reductionist about it. To think of it as a function or think of it as a metric or think of it as an outcome in itself, right? Because that again is being very fail-safey in your design approach, and it's not about that.
And coming to the last segment or last question is, the whole consumer, I mean, even the consumer is shifting. For example, the Indian consumer, like I was saying, is probably the rate at which the whole expectation has changed is dramatic as compared to Western countries. I mean, for example, if I look at my parents, now they book everything through app. I mean, before COVID, they'd probably not imagined they can do it. I want my food, groceries delivered in 10 minutes. I know we are spoiled by that. But then when brands look at that longevity from an experience standpoint as well, how do you forecast certain things? I mean, how do you look at those shifts which are happening? I know one answer you gave in the beginning was, in the whole fail-safe systems, you analyze all those points, what are the stress points. But those are your stress points. I mean, you're looking at symptoms. But I'm saying if the consumer is also shifting, the behavior is shifting. So, I mean, classic example is Bollywood is not working now. Probably they did not anticipate, or they did anticipate, but they were not designed to adapt to a new way of storytelling. Maybe. That's how you're seeing Netflix or other OTTs are picking up so well.
So have you heard of this paradox of possibility, right? Have you heard this thing?
No.
So it's not mine, I heard it somewhere. Paradox of possibility basically is that every possibility that you engage with is an opportunity for disruptive change, right? Equally, it is potentially something that keeps you away from those two things which are going to make you great. Right? So there's a paradox in possibility. So how do you as an organization deal with the paradox of possibility? I think one way probably, and I have some experience of having done this with some success in organizations that I've worked in and run, is to design your organization, fund your organization, staff your organization, resource your organization around 3 vertical pillars. Okay. One is what I call business. The other is what I call pilot. And the third is what I call lab. Business, pilot, lab. McKinsey's 3 horizon model 10, 20 years, whenever they wrote it, became sort of a way of looking at strategy, and a lot of people, and inherent in that was the assumption that strategy must have 3 horizons.
Right.
Horizon 1, you get there, that must be aligned to 2, and 2 must be aligned to 3, and then you're moving in a certain direction. So there was a sort of space for one horizon and the time for another horizon, right?
And there's a predictability on the
There's
evolutionary rate.
There's a path
of the industry.
Yeah, and there's a sort of vision that you need to have, and you can't be too micro and all of that, right? I think what's starting to happen today is that space-time thing is collapsing.
Correct.
Everything is happening right now. Right. So from a linear model where space is extended over time, I think the need has come to do everything in this time. Right.
Especially in the age of now AI and what it empowers.
AI, I'm saying microprocessor.
What it empowers you.
It's not AI. Something else will come. So it's when the microprocessor came, this started, I think. Right. And everything as predicted by that Moore's law or whatever seems to be happening. Right. It seems to be going in at least till now.
Right.
And it had started to slow down a little bit of AI aa gaya. Now again, it's sort of going in that direction. Right. So, so I think to recognize that and what would business pilot like? Business is that part of your organization that is innovating for today. That's building products, that's building market share, that's distributing, that's launching new products, that's
the BAU which is working.
BAU and also beyond also, even the innovation engine, right? Even the innovation engine of, what it needs to succeed and to survive and, be competitive and all of that. The pilot part of your organization is the organization that is building new business plan, testing new ideas, doing POCs, validating things, right? Perhaps a chapter from our book, I'm saying. Not
like I say,
sure.
what got you here will not take you there.
Yeah.
The business part is continuing what got you here.
Yeah. And doing more. Let's not dilute it by saying it's just BAU. More than BAU. Most organizations are just that actually. Right?
So that organic growth will continue to happen then.
No, organic, inorganic, everything, right? Everything what you call your current company, call it business.
Business.
Okay. And then create a separate organization that is only doing pilots, only doing new stuff, crazy stuff. These are your engineers in the company, right? The first business guys are the farmers, or the hunters. Farmers and hunters are all there.
Right.
These are your engineers. They're building new stuff, right? They're testing new stuff. They're talking to people. They're crazy. They're doing all sorts of things. And then the lab part of your organization is that part of you that wakes up in the morning and says, okay, it's that child that eats mitti and says, that teacher what she talked about. That part of your company which is getting bored. In that boredom, it is dreaming of new stuff. It's looking at stuff that's not happened. It's extremely futurist. Okay, and those are the guys who have no KPI, right? Their job is to eat mitti and get up in the morning and say, right? So if you can find a way to perhaps, think of your organization design, other than being, say, fail system, in its operational delivery and culture building and design, if you're able to institutionalize this and have leaders that have space in each of these places to be farmers and hunters, to be engineers, and to be these board individuals, perhaps we can build an organization that stays ahead of the curve, so to say.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I mean, I loved it. I'm sure all of our listeners would going to love it as well. All the insights and the concepts you shared. I'm going to see it multiple times myself to understand all of that. But thank you so much. It was a privilege, and I'm sure everybody's going to enjoy it as well.
I absolutely enjoyed it, and I think this is the first time that I've talked about CX in so much detail. But I find that almost everything that one has talked about product or brand in
Everything
previous
is CX.
context just applies here as well. So
Right.
it was fascinating even for me to explore it through this lens of CX.
Thank
So
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.